The Canadian High Arctic is a very remote, barren, and isolated place. But we're becoming increasingly aware that it is home to abundant mineral and petroleum resources. However, traditional geological field mapping techniques, that is, grabbing your hiking boots and rock hammer and camping in the middle of nowhere, is extremely time-consuming because if you don't know where you're going, you have to wander around looking for rocks. It's expensive because just getting up to these islands in the Canadian North is incredibly costly, and it's also dangerous if you're in the middle of nowhere, thousands of kilometers away from the nearest hospital. Therefore, more organizations and industries are looking towards what we call remote predictive geological mapping. That is, seeing how much mapping can we do from the comfort and safety of our desk before we head out to the field. And my project is introducing synthetic aperture radar for this task, which has not been used to its fullest potential for geological mapping. My study site is Axel Heiberg Island in Nunavut, up in the Canadian archipelago. Axel Heiberg Island has the second highest concentration of these features we call salt diappears in the world. Salt diappears are these really odd geological phenomenon that are these big mounds of salt. If you imagine ancient remnants of a paleo ocean precipitating a thick layer of salt, then having mud and sand and whatnot deposited on top, the salt says, hey, I'm less dense than other types of rock. And much how oil will rise through water, salt will rise slowly through other types of rock. And so you get these big mounds of salt rising to surface. And if some of these rocks that overlie the salt contain things like lead zinc ore deposits or petroleum reservoirs, as it's rising, it'll get trapped up against the flank of these salt domes, making salt diappears a key place to start looking for resources. And what do we know about salt? We know that it's soft. It dissolves in water, and so it erodes very readily, which means that at surface, our salt domes are going to be rougher than other types of rock in the surrounding area. The basics of how radar works is you send a radio wave to the surface and measure the amount that bounces back at you. If you imagine shining a light on a smooth surface like a mirror, most of your light's going to bounce the mirror and reflect away from you. But on a rough surface like a carpet, more of the light gets scattered in different directions, including back at the source. Radar is similar. On a smooth surface, most of your radar is going to bounce away, giving you a weak response. But it's inflicting a rough surface, like our salt diappears. More of the radar gets scattered in different directions, including back at the source, giving you a strong signal in your radar. So, using radar, we can start mapping where these diappears are before we grab our rock hammer and head out to the field, saving us time, money, and most of all, safety. Thank you very much.